Imposter syndrome starts with a belief in yourself or your abilities. Hey there, welcome to my Epique Journey. This is Brandon DeVere. Thank you as always for tuning in and sharing your time with me. I do appreciate that. Here we are on the journey from 600 to 0 to 600 plus and everything that entails. Today, jumping on a little bit earlier today, it is just at 9 o'clock, right on the dot, 9 a.m. And I was out, typically I like to go for like a morning walk. I call it the old man walk because I'm no longer like going out for jogs very often. Eventually, maybe. That's where I'll get to. But I like to go listen to podcasts, kind of get my mind started right. Depending on what I'm listening to, sometimes Ed Milet, listen to that podcast, Impact Theory. But today I was listening to Alex Hormozi. And Alex Hormozi, the game, he also has a number of books. I moved it from right here. $100 million offers, $100 million leads, things like that. But he has a podcast, and I listen to that. And a lot of the times I listen just to kind of get inspiration for the day and things like that. Usually for this podcast, I will go and go throughout the day, see what's happening, and kind of see however the day is, and kind of recap on that or get some inspiration somehow. But I hit one today because listen to one today, and I want to do it early because it's fresh in my mind, and I think it affects a lot of people. And what he was talking about, and he was talking about his belief. Like the belief in yourself and the belief in your abilities and things like that is like the number one thing to change and make you, become like if it gets you to that next level. Like if you have the abilities, that's fine. You have the skill sets, that's one thing. But believing in your ability to perform on those is another. And so I just kind of want to share a story as well with that. But first, his wife would knock him out of that mindset when he'd think that he wasn't good enough for certain things. Like, you have the skill sets, but where's your proof that you aren't good enough, right? You're telling yourself that you might not be good enough for various reasons. And I'll say for imposter syndrome, I've definitely suffered from that. A lot of things. It's weird because I'm very confident in most aspects, but at the same time, I have a confidence with also an imposter syndrome. And I was talking to a friend the other day that was like, "Hey, you do a lot. You are on chapter 11, and you don't want to make people feel stupid." And then this is what he said. This is not me. He's like, you don't want to appear like you're looking down on people, so you will ask them questions, like try to get them to chapter 11 and explain like the backstory or ask them, like, preface your story with, do you know what this is? And the thing I was telling him in that same conversation, I started talking about this Soleil. Like Soleil is a when you mix like pink Himalayan sea salt in water and you let it all dissolve, and then you take have a teaspoon with like a glass of water, like to start your day. There's some health benefits to it. I don't know all of them, but I started that conversation off by, instead of telling him what Soleil was, I'm like, do you know what it is? And then tell him, instead of just talking about it. And so I was like, oh man. So the reason I'm talking about this today is because we had that same conversation the story I'm about to tell you about that. But Alex Hormozi on the podcast today was talking about his one of his clients was selling, or he was like one of the top CrossFit competitors in the world, and he had an app that was making about $10,000 a month, and it was good, but it was he was making $10,000 a month, not by, he didn't have a sales team, didn't have anything, but it's $10,000 a month on just who he was and all that, and so. But he never thought, he was never proud enough about the app because he was never the top, like number one CrossFit, like the CrossFit champion of the world. So he was one of the top and was doing well based just on that. But his like limiting belief or his imposter syndrome like kicked in to where he was like, yeah, but I'm not this, right? I'm not the best, so my app mustn't be that great. And so I see that a lot. A lot in people. I mean, like I said, and even in myself. But once he started believing that he was good enough, so he changed his beliefs. Not his app didn't change. His skill set didn't change. His abilities didn't change. The only thing that changed was his mindset and his belief system on that he was good enough. And then all of a sudden he went to making like 140, 150 grand a month based on that switch. So that's one of the things that I think is very important for people to start thinking about themselves and understand. I have like my limiting belief, full transparency, is that when I learn something, I just think that other people have already learned it. So I don't think that I know anything special. However, when I share that information with somebody and they've never even heard of it, have no clue, like I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Like, and the same thing also is I also have a this like limiting belief and also like this worry that if I don't preface that I learned it from somewhere else, that people will think that I'm passing it off as my own, like my own thoughts and my own knowledge or discoveries that somebody else. So you'll hear me often reference books. I mean, I've already referenced, in the story that I just had with this whole thing. But the main story that I wanted to tell was right before COVID, I believe it was right before, right after. I had a title rep here in town, and I love to teach classes. I love to learn. I love to go teach. I love like Learn for Two podcast. That's what it was. That was me learning with the intent to teach to others, and so I could just share the information. I've had multiple people tell me that I need to start doing courses. And doing coaching calls and things like that, and that I need to be paid for sharing this information. But I love to share a lot of stuff. So I had a title rep get me in front of a brokerage. There's about 30 people, 25, 30 people in there. And I put together this like 7 pillars of like business planning workshop. You're going to go in, we're going to talk about 7 different things. You're going to pick a couple different things that you liked, and you went out and you did. So you can start implementing, because one of the biggest things I've noticed in classes, even the ones I attend, you go there, you get excited, I should do this, I should do that. You go home and your notebook, all your notes are like thrown on the counter, and you haven't done any of it at all. So anyways, I put this thing together, and I was so worried. I was so concerned that I was going to say something, because I strategically, the way that I put it together was, it was, here's pillar 1, and I discussed a couple different topics in there. Here's pillar 2, a couple different topics. We didn't go deep into anything, but it was designed to where I could have people reach out to me afterwards, so we can have a discussion. At the time, I was recruiting for EXP, so what I would do is I would create. If you ever heard, again, there I go qualifying it, right? Identify, agitate, and solve when you're trying to sell or recruit people. So, for instance, I would go in there and be like, hey, this is why you need a CRM. Oh, well, what is a CRM? Like, now you identify their problem is like, oh, well, the problem is they need to have a CRM. Okay, now I know I need a CRM. Okay, now agitate. Well, this is why you need a CRM. You're losing out on this business. You're like, oh man, I really need a CRM. I didn't even know what it was before, but now I know I need it. How can I get it? And then you solve the problem. And when you give them solve that problem, you offer an additional problem. You introduce an additional problem that you can solve again. So, for instance, now that I'm with Epique, I did this with the XP, but now that I'm with Epique, I could go in and go, hey, here is what you need. You need it to control your database. How do you do that? Well, you do it with a CRM. Oh, okay, I think I need one of those. Or I don't have one. Is it really that big of a deal? I write all my names down on note cards in a Rolodex or whatever. And then you go, well, this is why. Is what happens if you lose this. They can also send automated information, all this stuff that you don't have to do manually. Like, oh wow, okay, I guess I do need that. Okay, I need a CRM. Okay, yeah, well, you can use Lofty, which we use at Epique, but they're, oh great, I want that. Well, it's $600, $600 a month. Ooh, I don't want to pay that. But so now introduce another problem. So we've identified the problem is they didn't know what a CRM was. We agitated by making them understand what a CRM is, and then we wanted to solve it by giving them the option. Here's the options that you can have. Here is the CRM. But then you create the last problem where it's $600. That's a lot. $600 a month to run this thing. However, if you join me and my team, it's actually something that we provide. So now you get that. So now you've identified, agitated, solved one problem, solved 2 problems, and now you can get them to join. So this program was set for that, to do that, right? Every pillar that I talked about was something that we offered, and but it was meant to trigger thought about, okay, do I know what it is? Is it really that important to have? If it is, how do I get it? How much does it cost? And can they solve my problem? So that's kind of how all the 7 pillars worked out. But when I started putting this thing together, I got kind of nervous. I'm like, man, what if I'm going to be, I feel like I'm going to get exposed. Like someone's going to raise their hand and be like, this, I'm not learning anything new. This is so bad. Like I was really nervous about that. And keeping it along the lines of the CRM, I went in. This is a fairly large broker. I mean, they have 250, 300 agents, but about 25 to 30 showed up. So I guess 10% showed up. And I said, what CRM is everybody using here? Like, no hands up. And I go, okay, who knows what a CRM is? And about 4 or 5 people raised their hand and said that they knew what it was. And then I said, who's currently using one right now? 2 people raised their hand. So out of 25, 30 agents, 2 people knew what a CRM was. And my limiting beliefs, my imposter syndrome was getting in the way of, there were like the majority of the class had no idea what a CRM even was. And I was worried that I was going to be exposed because I just assumed that everybody else knew these things. And so like classic example of imposter syndrome and my belief in myself and my abilities. And just like Alex Hormozy's wife told him was, where's the proof? Where's the proof of your inability, or like your belief? Where's the proof that's backing this belief that you weren't going to provide value? And I went in there, and honestly, it was, everyone was like this. Like that's what they look at for the entire thing. So I'm not saying this is like groundbreaking and information that people are going to pay tens of thousands of dollars for me to go and teach them about. However, like, understand even where you're at, you have knowledge that others don't possess, and you can do that same thing. And just because some people might know it, there's different rooms that I would go into, and I could take that same presentation into other rooms, and people will be like, yeah, this isn't groundbreaking. But to a lot of people, like a lot of people are in the grind doing their thing and aren't learning what you're learning at the same time. So I would just say, just want to touch on that, like your belief system, like constant daily effort to reinforce and increase my belief system on my abilities and the ability to, share knowledgeable things. It's a constant work. I'm sure many other people feel this way. I just want to be kind of open and honest with it. Because some things, I don't know, it's a challenge, I guess, to move forward sometimes when you have that imposter syndrome. And I'm not talking like fake it till you make it type stuff. I've never been a fan of that. But if you know something and you have the ability and you can share it with others, share it. Some people, it might not be brand new to. Others, you might blow their mind and change your life with it. So I encourage you to do that. And I just want to jump on a little bit earlier today because that was fresh in my mind and kind of what I wanted to talk about. Again, all of this stuff, even though we're not talking about actual recruiting and things like that, this is all part of the journey. This is all the things that I want to share, as I'm learning them and having them reintroduced to myself that I may have learned in the past. Maybe you've learned all these things as well. But sometimes it's a nice little refresher to like recharge and reinvigorate and get your mind back into a good spot. But with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow and have a great one.